Welcome everyone to part 2 of Intro to Tableau. Before we get started with talking about how we can actually interact with Tableau and create interesting visualizations, I want to provide some brief history to the field of data visualization. If you're not interested in this, I will be providing a timestamp where you can actually skip to the Tableau part of this video. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about some early data visualizers, or early contributors to the field of data visualization. So here we have a graph or a visualization made by the historian and school teacher Friedrich Strauss. And as you can see, it's clear that this person was a historian because what they decided to visualize is the progression of empires. In the very beginning, we have our early empires, and as we keep going forward, the empires shift in width, which basically indicates their power. Some empires grow, some empires dwindle, some empires turn into other empires. This is an early example of visualizing data. Next, we have Florence Nightingale. This was a British statistician and head nurse from the 19th century. And what she decided to visualize was the causes of mortality of British soldiers. This was during the Crimean War. And she expressed deaths due to disease in blue, deaths due to unknown causes in black, and deaths due to combat in red. And as you can see, it is quite visually obvious that deaths due to disease far outnumber any other sort of death. This really highlights the need for clean drinking water and good health services while soldiers are out fighting. This kind of points out that logistics might be even more important than having a comprehensive army with, or rather, an army with the best weaponry. And then going forward, we have W.E.B. Du Bois. This was an American sociologist in the late 19th century, and he went around collecting data, and in addition to collecting data, visualizing this data in interesting and eye-catching graphs. Here we have something called a pyramid graph, and this actually points out the ratio of the emancipated alive according to age. And it also categorizes them into 3 distinct groups. We have single, married, and widowed. And if we take a look at pyramid graphs today, they really do express the same exact sort of, they're the exact same medium, right? This pyramid chart compared to this pyramid chart shows that they're exactly the same thing, basically, and that this pyramid chart has been in use for the past 200 or so years. So in reality, we are actually interacting with a very, very old field of computation. In the past, sociologists and statisticians have had to do this by hand. However, now we have useful tools such as Tableau or Matplotlib to create these visualizations for us. With that, let's go ahead and dive right into Tableau. So in the previous video, we directed you how to download Tableau. If you still haven't done that, go ahead and go back to part 1, and you should see some step-by-step directions, which will show you what exactly to do. And if you have Tableau downloaded, then go ahead and go into your search bar and look for Tableau Public 2022. And mine is already open. Okay, yeah. So here is the finished product of what we will get. For now, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the window that you all should see as well. All right, we're going to let this load. Yeah, I definitely recommend watching this video at 1.5 speed just to, okay, there we go, just to get through these sorts of moments. In fact, let me go ahead and just pause. Okay, great. So we are going to go ahead and get started with analyzing our rent data inside of the pivot year CSV file. Once again, in order to get that thing open, you're going to click on text file. You're going to find pivot year, and I'm also going to be providing a link to this file. We're going to let that compute. And then once again, we are going to follow the same steps from part 1. We are going to change this to string data. In addition to that, we're going to go ahead and set this to be a county. Great. And now let's go ahead and get started with creating our worksheets and dashboards. So in this video, we are going to be focusing on just worksheets and dashboards. In the next video, we'll talk about stories. But yeah, keep in mind, worksheets are the building blocks of your dashboards. Dashboards are a combination of worksheets. Oftentimes, worksheets are just going to be single visualizations that express some sort of change or trend. So let's go ahead and create our very first worksheet. Great. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and rename this just so that it is accurate. This is going to be named change in rent. Now you're going to notice that my data might be a little bit different. So if you have your previous pivot year, I definitely recommend going to the link posted below and using that new pivot year because our columns are going to be much more descriptive in this new file that I've uploaded. Okay, so what is the very first thing that we're going to create? Well, actually, before we get into creation, let's talk about these discrete components. So on the left-hand side, underneath the tab called Data, you're going to see measures and dimensions. Now, dimensions are your qualitative, if I can spell dimensions. Dimensions are your qualitative measures or your qualitative columns. As you can see, they describe things such as year, the state, the name of the county, the FIPS. These are all various numbers and strings that describe some sort of category instead of some sort of quantity. Right? We don't consider New Jersey to be number 1 and California to be number 50. It doesn't make sense to rank a state according to its in any ordinal value, at least for this purpose. And then below, you should see your measures. And your measures are exactly what they sound like. These are your quantitative values. These are your number values that will make up the data of your graphs. On the right-hand side, you should see this tab called Show Me, and this is a couple of quick visualizations that we can make as we drag and drop these Tableau categories or measures and dimensions. We will get some recommendations for visualizations here. Then we have filters. Filters are essentially a way for you to filter your data. If you're familiar with pandas by now, you'll know that you can filter your data according to some specific category, some specific state. Same exact concept here. And then lastly, we have marks. Marks are our formatting. As you'll see in the next couple of examples, we use formatting to introduce color, descriptions, and other useful markings that will express exactly what we are visualizing. So to get started, let's go ahead and make a simple bar chart. And this bar chart is going to describe the change in rent by county for New Jersey. So once again, I'm going to focus on New Jersey. And this is going to be focused on change in rent. And this is going to be a bar chart. Let's see how I can express all three of these aspects using Tableau. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and grab the column or the measure that describes my change in rent. That is the column called Delta Rent. I'm going to go ahead and grab that and place it inside of rows. And as you can see, I actually already get some recommendations for visualizations in the Show Me tab. I'm going to go ahead and click on this horizontal graph. And as you can see, I could have simply just grabbed some Delta Rent and dragged it inside of columns. So this isn't too descriptive yet. However, we're going to keep working with this to get what we want. So keep in mind that we want the average, we want the change in rent by county. So we actually have county name, and let's focus on 2020 for the time being. I'm going to grab county name 2020. I'm going to place that inside of rows. And as you can see, I have every single county within the United States along with the change in rent from 2020 to 2021. So it really doesn't matter what county name we use, either county name 2020 or county name 2021. They should all be the same going from one year to the next. So this isn't too helpful. First of all, let me go ahead and filter this only to include New Jersey. So first of all, let's consider which column here will give me the state of New Jersey. And as you can see, that's going to be State Alpha 2020. I'm going to drag this into the Filters tab. Keep in mind, filters is what we use in order to simply filter our data. as you can see, I have a bunch of states to choose from, and if I scroll down enough, I will see New Jersey. Let's go ahead and select NJ, and then hit OK. Great. Now, as you can see, I only have my counties inside of New Jersey. Now, this sum delta rent isn't too helpful. We usually don't take the sum of changes in rent by county. We usually will have some sort of central tendency measure, such as mean, median, or mode. I'm going to opt for mean in this example. Let's go ahead and go over to measure. And as you can see, I have all of these statistics to choose from. Let's go ahead and select average. All right. So next, let's go ahead and put this in some sort of logical order. As you can see, we have a drop-down button right next to county name 2020. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And as you can see, I have an option called field. I'll hover over that, and I can find average delta rent. Let's go ahead and select that. And as you can see, now we have all of our averages in descending order. We have the highest change in rent all the way down to the lowest change in rent. Average rent specifically. So let's go ahead and move on to the very next visualization that we're going to work through. Let's see here. Okay, let's go ahead and create a scatter plot next. So in order to create a new worksheet, I'm simply going to click on the new worksheet button in the bottom left corner. And just for visibility, I'm going to point that out right over here. And this could be a better color. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this button in order to create a brand new worksheet. Let's go ahead and rename this relationship between housing units and rent. So once again, I'm going to focus on the state of New Jersey. Now, before I walk through this step-by-step process of creating a scatter plot, I want you all to give this a shot yourself. Pause the video, take about 5 to 15 minutes to create a scatter plot. Tableau in this drag and drop format is pretty intuitive. It just requires some experimentation, some failure until we get to success. So give this a shot, and then when we come back, we will work through this process together in order to iron out any kinks. All right. Now that you've given that a shot, let's go ahead and try this together. So first of all, and it really doesn't depend on what order I put this in, I'm going to go ahead and filter for New Jersey. So once again, I'm going to drag State Alpha 2020 into filters and then scroll down until I get to NJ. Let's hit OK. Okay, next we need to go ahead and create a scatter plot. So in order to create a scatter plot, I'm going to go ahead and select the columns that I'm interested in. Namely, that's going to be housing units in the independent axes and rent price in the dependent axes. Keep in mind the dependent axis is always the y-axis and the independent axis is always the x-axis. Horizontal is independent, dependent is y. And let me just visualize that as well. Y-axis is dependent, and x-axis is independent. Anyways, I'm going to drag housing units 2017-2020. I'm going to drag that into columns. And as you can see, by default, I have sum. Once again, I'm going to change that to average. Then for rows, I'm going to drag rent 50-0 2020. Also change that to average. And as you can see, we kind of have one singular data point, and that's because we've computed the average housing units for the entire state of New Jersey and average rent for the entire state of New Jersey. And if we plot that, we just get 1 point. Let's go ahead and plot according to FIPS, according to county. So I'm going to go ahead and grab FIPS corrected, and I'm going to drag this into detail. Now, as you can see, we have a more comprehensive scatter plot. Now we're able to actually visualize or visually analyze the relationship between housing units and average rent. And as you can see, we kind of have this positive trend line here. But instead of me drawing it, let me actually express this using Tableau. If we right click on this chart, you'll actually see an option called trend line. Now a trend line is basically a line that shows, very self-explanatory, the trend in data. Is it a positive trend? Is it a negative trend? Is it a neutral trend? So I'm going to go ahead and select show trend lines, and as you can see, we get a very obvious positive trend, which basically indicates the more housing units we have, the more we charge for rent in the state of New Jersey. Now, I'm not sure about the real estate or economic forces at play. Maybe if you are, you can give me some insight in this case. However, I'm just going to rely on the data in order for my insights. Let's go ahead and find out a little bit more information about this trend line. I'm going to right click on the graph again, hover over trend line, and let's go ahead and take a look at describe trend model. So as we can see, we have 21 observations, not too statistically significant. Preferably, we would want 30 or more samples. However, we will just keep progressing. Then we have something called sum squared error, mean squared error, and then we have an R squared of 0.27. Not the best correlation for this trend line. And then we have a p-value of 0.01. We'll explore about what these metrics actually mean in the next couple of weeks when we talk about machine learning models, but for now, let's go ahead and just continue with these numbers as they are. Okay, and lastly, the last visualization that I want to go over are maps. Once again, let's go ahead and create a new worksheet. I'm going to rename this thing change in rent NJ map. Now, the cool thing about Tableau is that if we have geographic data, it automatically generates latitude and longitude. So what we could do is we could drag longitude into columns and drag latitude into rows. Let's see if I got this right. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so we're going to drag lat, long, and lat into those respective shelves. And as you can see, we get the world map. Now, this world map, by default, if you try to drag, it's going to give you this highlighting box if you want to remove that, or if instead you want to scroll through the map, I recommend going over to the left-hand side of the map, this box right here, and you will see this X and Y axes icon. Go ahead and click on that, and now you'll be able to freely zoom around the map. Okay, so we are interested in the state of New Jersey. So once again, let's go ahead and filter by New Jersey. All right. As you can see, we have some options for states. I'm going to select New Jersey. Great. Okay, so we don't have any visualizations pulled up yet. That's because we don't have anything within our Marks tab. So let's grab FIPS corrected, just like we did for the bar graph, drag that into detail, and look at that. We have these various points that represent counties in New Jersey. However, I don't want points. I want to put these into geographic sections. So if we click on Show Me, there's actually an option to change these geographic points into sections. And there we have all of the counties of New Jersey. Here we have Hudson, I believe, and other counties in New Jersey. Pardon me if you're from New Jersey, I don't know my counties. Anyways, next, let's go ahead and visualize the change in rent by county. So once again, we are going to go into our measures, grab delta rent. Aha. And then we're going to place it inside of color. Once again, we have sum. Sum is not a useful measure in this case. I recommend using something like average, perhaps even median. And as you can see, now we have the change in rent by county in New Jersey. Over in Hudson, the average change in rent from 2020 to 2021 was $274. In fact, every single county expressed a increase in rent going from 2020 to 2021. Some counties less so, $12 increase, and for example, the Hudson County, even more so. Great. So now that we have all three of these visualizations created, let's talk about creating a dashboard. So in order to create a dashboard, you're once again going to look down at the bottom left corner, and you will see a square with 4 boxes. Go ahead and click on that. And as you can see, you get a dashboard. By default, Tableau is going to give you the following dashboard. With this default dimensions, let's go ahead and change a couple of these metrics. So first of all, let's go into size on the left-hand corner, or on the left-hand side. And instead of range, let's go ahead and change this to automatic. And as you can see, automatic is a pretty good option to choose because this will resize the dashboard to fit any screen that it is displayed on, regardless if the user or the end user or the viewer of your visualization has a 15-inch screen, a 24-inch screen. Your visualization will scale to the size of their screen. Anyways, let's go ahead and now drag all these worksheets into our dashboard so that we can have a comprehensive arrangement of visualizations. All right, so the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to drag these columns or the horizontal object onto my dashboard in the tiled format. It's a pretty good idea to use these separators just so that we have equal spacing between all our visualizations. You could potentially use floating, however, tiled is just a cleaner format. Okay, let's go ahead and grab change in rent. I'm going to place that on the left-hand side. As you can see, I get my worksheet that I've created. Now, let's say I don't want this legend on the right-hand side. Well, I can just go ahead and grab the vertical object, and I can actually drag it inside of my visualization. Now, from there, now it looks messed up for the time being, but what this will actually allow me to do, whoops, give me 1 second. All right, pardon that, I actually dragged it in the wrong location. So let's go ahead and grab vertical, and let's place it right below our map, inside of the same container. Now, as you can see, we have 2 columns, but one column just has 2 rows inside of it. I'm going to use that extra row and drag this legend inside of my column. And as you can see, now we have something that's a little bit more visually appealing. However, let's go ahead and just drag the rest of our worksheets and see how this is formatted. So next, I want to go ahead and grab the change in rent for New Jersey and place it inside of the other column. And as you can see, it automatically resizes this. And then finally, I want to go ahead and grab my scatter plot and place it right below my change in rent. So to accomplish that, I'll once again grab vertical, place it right underneath my bar graph, and then drag my scatter plot into that vertical object. All right, great. And that's how you create a dashboard. The patterned approach is to use these horizontal and vertical objects. It's sometimes a process of trial and error, as you can see. But after playing around with Tableau enough, you should be able to get a sense of where you need to drag and when. Let's go ahead and just drag one last thing, and that's going to be a title to this dashboard. Great. I'm going to go ahead and label this changes in rent for New Jersey. Let's go ahead and make this text a little bit larger. Let's hit OK. And as you can see, now we have a title for our dashboard. So we could leave this as such, and this will be a pretty informative dashboard. As you can see, we can find who had the largest increase in rent, which is obviously Hudson County. And it seems like Hudson County, this seems to be a Pareto distribution where we have some counties, or at least one county with the largest increase in rent, and then the rest of the counties have very, very small increases in rent. Great. So that's going to be it for today's video, everyone. Later on, we're going to figure out how we can create a Tableau dashboard, how we can connect Tableau to a database, and finally, how we can make all of these graphs parameterized and work with one another. Like, for example, let's say we don't want New Jersey. Let's say we want New York. Well, we should be able to create a drop-down menu where we can select the state that we're interested in. All right, see you all in the next video.